Hello. This video is an introduction to the ASLA program at Happy Kids. And if you're watching this video, then you're a parent who's interested in our ASLA program, interested in enrolling your child in our program, or you're just someone who's looking to learn a bit more about our programs at Happy Kids. I am Jason Brunken, or Mr. Brunken, as I'm known at Happy Kids. I'm the ASLA program principal here at Happy Kids, and I'm also a longtime ASLA teacher and parent. In fact, I've been teaching here at Happy Kids since 2006. If you want to pause the video, you can take some time to write down my email address there. It's jbrunken@happykids.taipei. If at any time after you finish this video, if you have questions or just want some more information about the program, you're welcome to contact me there. And I'm joined today by, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. My name is Alvin Charles Yan. Kids usually call me Mr. Yan. I am the day program principal here at Happy Kids. And Jason and I, we start at the same time back in 2006. If you come across with any question about the after-school kindergarten program or anything in general, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, ayan@happykids.taipei.
That's right. And if you want a tour of our school, Mr. Yen's usually the one who will set that up for you and walk you around and show you what we're all about here at Happy Kids.
Exactly.
And you're here to help me talk a bit about ASLA today. And kind of how we'll probably talk to you a bit about how day program kind of merges into ASLA a little bit, especially at the kindergarten level.
Of course.
Okay, so we're going to start with just a quick overview of what ASLA is. It's a good place to start. Just letting all the folks out there know what we do in ASLA and give them a general idea of what our guiding philosophy and kind of our core values are.
Exactly. What is ASLA?
Yeah. And so I think the best place to start is the name. ASLA stands for After School Language Arts. It's a very apt name, actually, because ASLA is a full language arts program, and it's set after school for our students, and hence ASLA. And it's been called that since before I was at the school.
Exactly. It's been
where you came in. And so I always like to tell parents that a great way to think about ASLA is that it's really a continuation of day program.
That's correct.
Same school, just different time. And in fact, many of our ASLA classes are taught by the same teachers who teach day program.
That is correct.
A lot of our ASLA classes are in the same classrooms as some of our ASLA students spent some of their day program days.
Exactly. That is correct.
And if you're not a former day program parent out there watching this video, our day program, actually I'll let Alvin quickly just spend 30 seconds talking about the day program really quick.
Sure. An easy way to describe our day program, it's pretty much fairly similar to a typical American school that you would imagine. We start at the age of 2, go all the way till age 6. It's a full-length English-only program, and we follow the center-based approach.
Yeah, and so we bring that up because ASLA, I would say the majority of our ASLA students are actually graduates from our day program.
That is correct.
Yeah, and so that's why we're saying they have some of the same teachers. A lot of times they're in the same room because, that's kind of how ASLA is put together. So you can see here on the screen in front of you that we have 2 class periods for ASLA. We have our early bird period, which meets from 1:30 to 3, and that's basically for our public school friends. So, again, ASLA is generally for elementary school students, and so for our students who attend a local public school on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, they're done with class around 12 o'clock. And so they have some time to eat lunch, and then they come to class at 1:30, and that class lasts until 3 o'clock, 90-minute sessions. Now, for our private school friends who find themselves in school until 4 or 4:30, we have our regular sessions, which meet at 5 o'clock. And then for our older students, grades 3, 4, and 5, who even at public school, they have to stay in school until about 4 o'clock. The regular session is for those grades as well. So let's get back to this idea about how ASLA is a continuation of what we call here the Happy Kids way, right?
The Happy Kids way. That is correct.
That's what our founder, Mrs. Wong, likes to refer to it as. And the Happy Kids way just refers to how we like to approach teaching. And as you can see here, these are some of the core elements. First of all, just like day program, ASLA is an immersive English environment. We feel that's key to what we do here. You can't teach English unless you provide the correct environment. And here at Happy Kids, even in day program, I think one of the core tenets of day program success is the day program's ability to set up this really good immersive English environment for the kids so they learn it really fast.
That is true, Mr. Brunken. I think one of the things that our founder, Mrs. Wong, really emphasized when she founded the school back in, it was 25 years ago, actually, that process over product is something that we try to focus. So again, it's about what the little ones had acquired through all these activities that we provided, instead of just thinking about presenting a product or showcasing a product to you as a parent.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that process over product a bit later. But here, again, the immersive English environment, very important. We continue that in ASLA. High quality teachers and a very good curriculum, key to what we do. We pride ourselves on the teachers we hire because of the skill and experience that our teachers have. We're able to, we've been able to build a very good program and maintain a fantastic program. Actually, I would say one of the best in the city.
For sure.
Not that I'm biased or anything.
That is for sure. And we've been doing this for many, many years. It's nothing new to us. We've been doing this for many years, Mr. Brunken. That is correct.
Good. And just like day program, we don't have a narrow focus. We put a focus on the entire child. And also, I think in ASLA, more importantly, we have a whole language approach, meaning we don't just focus on reading comprehension, vocabulary acquisition. We focus on all the language arts skills and as well as developing the child within the scheme of like our core values. And then, of course, a caring, safe, stimulating classrooms and learning environment, and a fun, pressure-free learning environment for our parents.
That is perhaps, if I may say, Mr. Brunken, that is perhaps the key success of our ASLA program, because as a parent, I'm sure you'll understand the kind of a workload of your little ones have to deal with from their day school, whether it's public school or private school. But then at the same time, what we learn from these students or children is that they wanted to come back to us, even after a long day.
Right. And most parents who choose the ASLA program are, they like this idea because they know that elementary school students here in Taiwan have a tremendous amount of homework, probably more than most students on the planet, actually. and we don't want to put kids off learning English. And so we make sure that their time they spend at Happy Kids is not wasted, but at the same time, it's fun, it's enjoyable, and there's not a lot of pressure on them, at least outside of school. So in that respect, we don't give standardized tests, graded tests, or quizzes, and we also don't send homework home. In fact, probably the only homework we give, independent reading, right? Because reading is really a core to any language learning program out there.
It is the key.
And just like in day program, if you're a day program parent, you've heard these before. Just if you're new to our school, these are, as you can see on the screen here, these are our core values as a school. And this falls into the character education aspect of Happy Kids, and how we focus on the whole child, right? We don't want to just bring up kids who know English. We want to bring up good kids. And these are the core values that we identify in our curriculum that we like to foster in our students. I assume all of you can read, so I'm not going to read them off there, but good. And I would say the key difference with ASLA is that, yes, the core values are the same, but in ASLA, there are new expectations for the students because they're older now, they're more capable, and so those values manifest in different ways, in the way they should for older elementary school students.
Exactly.
So again, who is the ASLA program for? That's something we're going to talk about here. We feel, at least I feel, it's a program for anyone. Whether you're a parent who's looking for a challenging learning experience to help prepare your child for a future academic goal, ASLA program has what you need. If you're just a parent who's looking for kind of a relaxing English only environment for your child to kind of just build on the skills that they developed in day program and just to make sure they don't forget what they've learned, or, and of course improve going forward, ASLA is a program for that as well. Okay, so I'm going to briefly talk about curriculum, just because when you talk about textbooks, most people fall asleep. So that's the most important part here. But I know a lot of you out there are probably curious about the books and stuff
that we're using.
Yeah, so let's go through and do that. So you can divide the ASLA curriculum into two chunks. You have the Journeys chunk. So here on the screen, you can see Hoffman Mifflin Harcourt's Journeys curriculum, which we've been using since, I don't know,
preschool, and we've
no, I
been
mean,
using
when did we get Journeys?
more than
2008,
than 20 years.
Not 20 years.
Was it 20? Wait,
because we had collections first. We've been
collections
using
first.
Journeys since 2008 or 2009 as a
correct.
school.
That is correct.
With a lot of success. And the Journeys curriculum makes up, I don't know, probably about 65-70% of what most ASLA classes do in the classroom. And I'll expand more on that idea later, but here you can see some of the covers of the textbooks, and then a nice little picture of, looks like some third grade friends there doing their third grade practice book at their tables. So our teachers will use Journeys and the quality curricula that you can find within Journeys to deliver reading, vocabulary, grammar, and spelling instruction predominantly. Now you can pause this slide and read through this text, but I'm just going to go through each of these in a bit more detail. So with reading instruction, one thing I really like about Journeys, and Alvin, you'd probably agree,
right.
For the younger grades that use Journeys as well, is that the reading selections you find in Journeys are actual children's literature.
Exactly. They didn't just make up stories for the sake of standards or...
Which a lot of schools out there do.
Exactly.
They have their own curriculum of just, these cheesy reading selections that are made just to fit that narrow list of vocabulary words, right?
It's never fun.
So the foundation of Journeys, the smart people who wrote it, they're smarter than me, so they wrote this curriculum. They actually used the reading and the text that they selected. They selected it from the vast library of children's literature, and they designed the curriculum around those reading selections. So the books and the reading selections that your kids will encounter from Journeys are books that they can find at the library or even in our library here at Happy Kids.
Exactly.
And yes, the children practice reading in our classrooms, and our teachers do focus on reading comprehension. But one thing I like about our program is that we go beyond that, in that we teach kids not only how to read, but how to use reading as a tool to be lifelong learners. And that comes with teaching kids reading skills, like how to sequence events, how to break down the structure of a story, how to identify main ideas and details, comparing and contrasting, things like that. Vocabulary, also a key component. And so in a Journeys lesson, the vocabulary is already identified by the curriculum. And I think a key component and an important distinction for parents to understand about ASLA is that vocabulary is taught in our program in context. And so what that means is a lot of schools, all schools teach vocabulary, but kind of I don't know, what would you say, the Taiwanese way of teaching vocabulary?
That's a good way
is that a good way to say it?
That's a good way to put it.
Is to provide a long list of words with their definitions and task kids with just memorizing those words. And then you do like an ABCD matching test, right? Which, kids learn a lot of words that way, but they also forget a lot of words that way too.
It's hard to keep it up.
Yeah, the research shows that kids learn and retain vocabulary better if they learn it in context, meaning they learn it as it's used in usage, whether it's in writing or speaking. Right. So Journeys will introduce, as you can see here on the screen, Journeys introduces the vocabulary words in sentences for students. So they see an actual sentence with the words used. And then most teachers, like myself, provide students with several opportunities to practice those words, whether in writing and in speech in the classroom, to help ensure some long-term retention of the vocabulary.
Exactly.
And then here you can just see a quick look at the practice book, which is kind of the main tool that our teachers use to give kids opportunities to practice the grammar lessons, the phonics, the spelling, some vocabulary, and some reading skills and writing skills as well. And the practice book is something you as a parent will actually buy. So at the end of the year, the practice books can go home and you can keep them there to review if you wish. Okay, so I mentioned that the Journeys curriculum is about 65-70% of what we do. What's the other chunk? Well, the other chunk has to do with kind of what we feel are two of the key principles we hold here at Happy Kids. And that is that we don't teach to a particular test. Both day program and ASLA, we don't focus on one specific goal for our students, whether it's like passing the GEPT at a certain grade or to, pass the interview at TAS or something like that.
No, we don't do that.
We structure our program to serve a variety of needs.
Mhm.
Basically, our philosophy is that the approach of our ASLA program is to get kids to nurture a level of command and fluency in English to help prepare them for any situation that they might need English in the future, which I know parents, you guys out there, you know that is a lot of situations, especially in the world today.
Exactly.
And so at Happy Kids, we view English as a tool that kids can use, and we want to help nurture that tool. And as Alvin, you mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
the idea of process over product is really important here at Happy Kids.
It is.
And so in ASLA, what that means is we don't want you to think of grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4 as individualized like classes with a chunk of stuff that they're going to get done, but rather we like to look at the entire 6 years of the program, and that being a long, a process going from, foundation to mastery.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so students progress through that process at different speeds, and we recognize that here at Happy Kids. And that's why we don't like to put the focus on individual products, but on that process of learning. We also recognize that we're in the 21st century now, hard to believe, and we are
20 years down.
And our students are 21st century kids, and the world is changing quickly, and kids need certain skills to be successful in the future. And so one thing I make sure our teachers build into their classes is educational professionals out there have identified certain skills like leadership, collaboration, creativity, expressiveness as so-called 21st century skills, skills that the future leader, the future employee will need to be successful in a future 21st century economy. And so these are skills that we build into a program. And so why am I talking about 21st century skills, process over product and stuff? Well, one of the ways that we're able to nurture these skills and nurture the idea of process over product is building in what we call extension projects, which we feel is a very unique and attractive feature of our program.
Mm-hmm.
So extension projects, we're able to do this because of the excellent staff that we hire. Mm-hmm. We hire teachers who are experienced and capable and trained. And they're able to take our curriculum and develop project-based units around the different language skills that they're practicing in class to help facilitate growth in creativity, expression, leadership, confidence in the classroom. So here you can see two of our, I think, third grade students again. No, those are fourth grade students showing off one of their projects. But examples of these extension projects would be like in sixth grade, our students learn how to build websites, and then they build a website to teach about a topic, and then they share it with the world. I know our fourth graders build animations, computer animations, to help tell stories. Help me out here. Our second graders carry on a year-long pen pal project with international schools. This year, the school's in Tanzania, and so they develop a correspondence relationship. And today, we use video technology to build that relationship as well.
Based on the example you just shared, Mr. Brunken, one thing that I can add on to that is that take pen pal project, for example. So yeah, we're practicing writing letters, but instead of just writing to your teacher or to your parents, you're actually writing to somebody else from the other side, far away from Taiwan, actually. So to them, it's, you're still practicing that language skill, but in a very different manner, in a more interactive manner.
Right. And it goes to speak to our philosophy of showing kids that English is a tool, a key actually, that opens the door. And we'll expand on that idea a little bit later. So I think you can see kind of the breadth of the curriculum here, the ASLA program. So now let's expand on this idea as English being a tool. Basically, I just want to talk about the big picture here for a little bit about ASLA. And so again, we just want to reiterate that the main goal, I think the overarching goal of our entire school is to basically build a general mastery and fluency in English throughout the process, right? The process of both, you combine day program where you go from our little ones, 2-3 years old, who don't know a lick of English, most of them, not all of them, but most of them, all the way till they graduate from the ASLA program, where they go from not knowing any English to being able to compose college level essays and tell detailed and awesome stories, writing their own dramatic script and performing that in front of an audience. That all of that takes place in that process. And and that's because we feel, English is a key to the world. It's the one skill, and I think all of you out there would agree that it's one of those skills that open up a tremendous amount of opportunity and success.
That is correct.
For kids.
That is correct.
For kids today, especially in Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of parents who are watching this, you're wondering, is the Happy Kids ASLA program the program for my kid? Who is this program a good fit for? Well, here on the screen, this is kind of an overview who we feel the ASLA program is a good fit for, which basically is almost everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a parent who's seeking an industry-leading, basically one of the best English language arts programs in the city to send your kid to, the ASLA program is the program for you. If you're a parent who's looking for a bilingual education, you want your child to learn Chinese and be fluent in Chinese, but also learn English, be fluent in English, but for various reasons you don't want to send them to one of the many bilingual or international schools here in Taiwan, ASLA allows you to do that. Like me, my children attend public school here, and so they get their Chinese learning, their math and all that in the local school, but then they still come to Happy Kids so they can develop their English language fluency.
It's a very good balance for those of you who would prefer your little ones to enroll in a Taiwanese schooling system where you want them to be fluent in their first language, in this case would be Mandarin Chinese. But then, like what Mr. Brunken just mentioned, that at the same time, you want to keep up with their English. So to put them in a simple manner, ASLA programs serve the best when it comes to that.
Definitely. If you're a parent who's looking to transfer, your child's going to transfer, whether it's in elementary school or after elementary school to an international school, one of the many international schools here in Taipei, ASLA is a good program for you because the ASLA program basically matches the international school's curriculum. And so our experience is that our students have no problem making that transition.
Not at all.
To international school. And finally, if you just are a parent who knows that somewhere in the far future, whether it's high school or university, your child's going to be attending school abroad, the ASLA program is an excellent choice because it introduces your child to the types of lessons, activities, and teaching styles that your child will encounter when learning abroad. And I think that's really important because the learning styles, the teaching styles are very different between, let's call them Western schools and schools that we see here, the local schools in Taiwan.
Right. Based on what Mr. Brunken just mentioned, one thing that I want to add on to that is the thinking process that we provided here in both the day program and the ASLA program is that you don't get that in the local school system, and you're going to need that when you're thinking about going abroad, whether it's like a boarding school or you're thinking about going for universities later on.
Yeah, so great program for so many different kids. And so let me just speak a little bit about our students. And, again, I'm biased, but I mean, here's what I feel that we have. Our ASLA students we're some of the best. We have some of the best students
very proud
out there. Our students, I feel they can compete with just about any student out there. And we've seen that too, because our students have had no difficulty competing with their peers to enter even the most prestigious international schools here in Taipei. Our students are creative and they're leaders. A lot of times what we find is, graduates from our programs or even at their elementary school, our students are the ones who are identified as the most creative, the most expressive, the most confident in English. And so they're the ones often chosen to represent their class in English language competitions or the drama performance or the English song competitions in many of those as well. And then when they move on to high school and university, a lot of times they're taking on leadership roles.
That is correct.
And then, of course, collaboration. Now, collaboration is very important. In the 21st century, most jobs today require collaboration. And I feel we're one of the few programs that really focus on collaborative learning and collaborative work in the classroom.
That is correct.
Okay, so let's talk about process. Because you did such a good job mentioning process over product before. So let's look at the process that we have for ASLA. We stand by this process we've seen it work, and it continues to work for us. Here on the screen, you can see the process from grade 1 all the way through grade 6 and what we go through. I'll talk about each of these steps in more detail here. I'll just leave this. You can always pause it, I guess, if you really want to read it.
Mm-hmm.
So starting in grade 1, we consider grade 1 the foundation level of our program. So what grade 1 students will do is they're going to review and master their phonics. Mm-hmm. Phonics is introduced early in day program.
That is
right?
correct. We start introducing phonics, letter sound connection, by the time they're in preschool. So that's around age 4.
Yep. And so obviously by preschool, kindergarten, our kids are already learning their phonics, but it's really in grade 1 where we make sure that they've got it down, right. They have it mastered, and they finish the step, that experts in the field like us, we call learning to read. Mm-hmm. That means you give them any English test, they're able to open it and they can read through it without much problem. Mm-hmm. And they can get to that point because after, a child can learn to read, they can use reading as a tool to actually learn more. And that's where you want to get kids in at the elementary school level. So first grade, they review, they master their phonics, they finish learning to read, and they start learning the fundamentals of writing, basic sentence composition, mm-hmm. the basics of paragraph construction, also foundations of grammar, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they begin the difficult process of independent composition, like mm-hmm. writing sentences by themselves, taking what they can think and say and putting it down well in writing. So that's first grade. And then moving on to second grade, very important year in the ASLA program. We consider grade 2 kind of the fundamentals year in our program. This is where we take those foundation skills that our first graders have mastered and take them to the next level. So it's really in grade 2 where we get the kids starting to read to learn with mm-hmm. a strong focus on reading skills. So we introduce a lot of reading skills and we teach kids how to use those reading skills to get information from what they're reading. And then I think the big focus in grade 2 is definitely on writing, because it's really in grade 2 where we teach the basics of composition, meaning we teach kids, here's a paragraph, here's how you use a paragraph to organize ideas. And then we teach them different kinds of compositions. How do you write a letter? How do you write a story? How do you write persuasive paper? How do you do research? How do you write a research paper?
Poetry.
Yep, and poetry.
Poetry.
Again, with a focus on getting kids to start to write independently. Mm-hmm. And all of that is in the grade 2 year. So the kids, second graders, are very busy in our program. And then kind of the middle grades there, 3, 4, and 5, I call this the growth phase of our program, because it's really in these grades where kids start developing those skills that were first introduced in grades 1 and 2, and they really grow during these grades. So they start becoming more proficient in their reading skills. They start learning to master those basic compositions that mm-hmm. they learned in grade 2, stories, how to take those compositions further, expand on them, how to, write like provide more detail, how to write like a more mature writer. Mm-hmm. They start learning how to use writing as a tool of expression. Again, getting kids out of that the mechanical writing phase where it's just like, oh, I got to put it down in this order, and just learning how to use writing as that tool to really express their ideas in a interesting, creative way. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of them can do verbally, at that age, but then learning how to do the same thing skillfully in writing. And then finally, figurative language, which is a more advanced language skill. It's really it's introduced in grade 2, but really in grades 3, 4, and 5, where kids get a lot of practice using figurative language in English. Again, goes to expression, learning how to express themselves more accurately. Mm-hmm. And finally, grade 6, which is the year our students graduate from the ASLA program. I like to think of grade 6 as our mastery phase of the program. I say grade 6 and up here because we do have a class for secondary students that meets on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So students who want to continue their level of mastery of English can continue to attend Happy Kids beyond 6th grade. But the focus of this video is the ASLA program. And so that kind of ends at grade 6. So it's in grade 6. We call it the mastery phase because it's really here where students really start to learn to read for depth and complexity, learning how to analyze text, learning how to analyze characters, really just more advanced reading skills that we work with. Again, continuing to develop their writing, but starting to learn and develop more advanced writing skills. One of those is learning how to write with a more formal voice. And so this is done, more formal essays, for example, are introduced at this level. Formal letters, like a business letter, is introduced in grade 6, and students get the opportunity to practice those. These are very important writing skills. In fact, I've been the 6th grade teacher for many years, and a few of my first grade 6 graduates are now off in university, and they like to come back and tell me how learning to write an essay in grade 6 really helped them even in university in the States.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr. Brunken. It's actually very interesting because a lot of these skills, it's so essential, but it's not being introduced in the local school system, or they never really get a chance to practice that skill. But with the ASLA program right here, they start to get into that by the time they're in grade 6 and above. So to them, that's one of the reasons the students and parents love the program so much, because they found out whatever they acquire along the way, it's fairly useful in the long run.
Definitely. And of course, because for a lot of our students, it's their last year in the program, we want to make sure they leave Happy Kids as lifelong learners. So they never forget how to read for fun and continue their reading and English learning journey beyond their time at Happy Kids. All right, so Mr. Yen, I'm going to give it to you. Talk a bit more detail about ASLA K for those parents out there who are really focused on our kindergarten program in ASLA.
The ASLA kindergarten program. All right. So again, as some of you might know, or to those of you parents who are currently enrolling in our preschool program, your little one have been introduced to the Journeys curriculum this year in preschool. Now that there's a foundation, they've been exposed with letter sound connection, blending CVC words. The ASLA kindergarten will further that foundation and to develop their English language skills. Just like what Mr. Brunken mentioned earlier, we meet 4 times a week from 5 o'clock to 6:30. And unlike day program kindergarten, where it's center-based and various subjects will be introduced, as center activities throughout the year, where in AK, in ASLA kindergarten, we'll focus on your child's phonics, early reading and writing skills, as well as their grammatical concepts. Some parents will ask me this question. They're like, well, Mr. Yen, where can I expect my child to be by the time they're ready to move on to grade 1? Well, if you look at what the preschooler are learning at the moment, like I mentioned earlier, which is blending the letter sounds and form simple CVC words. Once they're familiar with that, children in our AK program will focus on gathering their thoughts and idea and then turn them into complete sentences. So if I may sum up and put it in a simple manner, one of the biggest goal for our little ones in ASLA kindergarten is to form their ideas and thoughts into complete sentence. Again, the great thing, one thing that I love about our program, like I mentioned it earlier, just like the day program kindergarten, ASLA kindergarten will always be fun and engaging. With the same theme-based approach in place, theme activities will still be introduced on a monthly basis. And as a former AK teacher, I've been teaching AK, Mr. Brunken, for I kind of lost count.
For a while.
For quite a few years. I started here at Happy Kids as an AK teacher, so I've been doing this for many years. And I've always considered, just like what you see right here, the AK program is the best of both worlds. Meaning that while your child, like we talked about ASLA program in general, while your child is getting that Mandarin education throughout the day, she or he can continue their English language acquisition with us in the afternoon. So it's a really good balance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yen. So I know a lot of you out there are specifically interested in grade 1. So just let me go into a bit more detail about our first grade curriculum right now. And then I'll talk a bit about science class, because actually I know most parents have the most questions about science. And so I'll give a quick introduction to Happy Scientists too before we close out here. So a great way to understand first grade, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's that foundation level of the program, that foundation stage. But it's really a continuation of the kindergarten curriculum, and that's specifically with Journeys, because we actually, kindergarten uses the first grade, the first 2 units of the first grade Journeys books, and grade 1 uses the final ones, the last 4. We have 2 early we have 2 grade 1 classes. As I mentioned before, we have our early bird class for our public school friends who are done at 12. And so they can come here to Happy Kids at 1:30, and that class meets 1:30 to 3. And then we have our 5 o'clock grade 1 class, and that's for our private school friends who are usually done around 4 or 4:30, and they can come after they're done with school for that. And again, grade 1 is a continuation of K, but there's an even greater focus on reading, writing, especially writing, grammar and vocabulary compared with kindergarten. So again, the focus with grade 1 is laying that strong foundation. We use journeys. We use units 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the first grade curriculum because they do units 1 and 2 in kindergarten.
That's right.
Yep. And with the big focus on those areas which I just mentioned. Now, one thing I think is very important for parents to understand about grade 1 is that it's a difficult transition year for kids. It is. Because for a lot of our students, especially our friends who went all the way through day program and graduated from kindergarten and day program, they have no idea what they're in store for when they get to first grade.
First grade is a very different ballgame.
Yeah. Because my kids, I pulled my kids out of day program for kindergarten because I wanted them to attend local kindergarten because me and my wife believe strongly that they have to. They needed to get ready for first grade. Learn some of their Chinese phonics.
Exactly.
Learn and kind of just learn how to do homework because one of the because a local kindergarten, the kids get a little bit of homework.
It's very true.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest surprise I think for our kindergarten, our day program graduates is they get to first grade and all of a sudden they're in a classroom environment now. There's a bunch of kids, like 30 kids in their class.
Homework.
They have homework every day.
They have to write their own communication books.
That's right. They got to write their own communication.
It's a teacher's job here. Happy Kids.
They have tests, right?
Exactly.
These are all new concepts for first graders, and so it takes a while for first graders to really adjust to that change. And so here at Happy Kids, I want to point out that we understand the difficulty of that transition, and so first grade is a unique year in ASLA in that it does kind of combine the best of both those worlds in that our first grade teachers pull some of those day program activities that kids know and love, like circle time, art activities, more hands-on learning stuff, some kinesthetic, some motion, sing-song stuff, and combine it with, the more difficult journeys, language arts activities that they need to learn. And so it's that combination, and it's a slower pace because, just like I said before, whereas in grade 2, we go through 6 units of journeys throughout the school year. In grade 1, we only have 4 to get through. So they can move at a slower pace. And that allows the teachers time to fit in some of these more, I don't want to say day program-like activities, but more engaging, more hands-on, I think that relaxing.
Like what Mr. Brunken mentioned earlier, children at this particular age, first grade, they kind of need that balance so that help them to kind of ease into their day school as well as the actual ASLA program.
Definitely. All right, so this is the last one. We're almost done. Happy Scientists. Okay, so if you've never heard of Happy Scientists, the best way to understand it is it's a science class that is held after our first and second grade early bird classes. Because it's at 3 o'clock, it's basically only for our early bird students.
That's what I was just going to say that, Mr. Brunken, because I get a lot of calls from the parents asking about Happy Scientists. They love the program. They heard about it. They want to be a part of it. But unfortunately, the little ones are enrolling in the private school system, meaning that they won't be able to make it. So that's something that...
It doesn't necessarily... we have had students who were not in early bird, they're in regular, that were in science, but it kind of depends on where, obviously if your child is going to a school and they're in school till 4, they can't attend science. But
that is true.
The science class meets at 3 o'clock, which is directly right after the early bird classes. Program. So almost always our early bird students are Happy Scientists.
Exactly.
So the Happy Scientist class is relatively new to Happy Kids. I mean, used to be new. It's probably in its 14th year now. Something like that. It started when I first got here, so probably since 2006.
2006.
First year.
2006. Yeah. That's when we started.
And you've probably heard parents talk about it. I know the kids love it. I know my daughter always said that science class in elementary school was so easy because of everything she learned in Happy Scientists.
And it's fun too. That's another thing.
That's right. So what is Happy Scientists? It's basically a fun, hands-on, all English introduction to science. We use Hoffman Mifflin Harcourt's Science Fusion curriculum. We use both the grade 1 and 2 curriculum because Happy Scientists is almost always a mix of first and second graders. And while we do have the science books, we try to keep it as hands-on, as fun as possible because science has to be, right? It has to be. But I want to make clear that it is kind of a very big introduction to science. It goes through all of the science concepts. I think we spend about 3 months on life science or biology, 3 months on earth science, which is kind of geology and astronomy. And then we spend about 3 months on physical science, or basically physics and a little bit of chemistry, obviously at the first and second grade level.
Of course.
And so I think it's really, it's a fun hands-on class. Not only do the kids do a little bit of book work, but as you can see here, they do a lot of hands-on experiments and tests in the classroom. We also take them outside on little science trips to the park, and occasionally even a field trip or two if time allows us to.
That is correct.
So as we always say here at Happy Kids is where learning and fun are one. I think Mrs. Wong said that.
That's from Mrs. Wong, our founder.
And so this concludes our video. I want to thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Yep. And remember, if you have any questions at all, ever, you can always call us at school. But these are our email addresses again for both me and Mr. Yen. And we're happy to entertain any of your questions or share with you any information if you need more that you didn't get in this video. So thanks again. And we hope to see all your kids at Happy Kids soon.
Exactly. Thank you all.